Here are my week 6 fantasy football running back rankings. I got all the information you want to know. Who's the best plays, who has the greatest matchups, and who you do not want to play this week. I got it all right here. Let's start off with my S tier running backs. At number 1, I'm going to go with Dalvin Cook. Just last week, Breece Hall put up 26 points, and the backup Michael Carter put up 16. The week before, Joe Mixon, 15.4, and even 3 weeks ago, Devin Singletary put up 19.6. I mean, the statistics back up Cook's status. And with the new concussion protocol in play, I don't think we will have Tua or Teddy Bridgewater returning for week 6, leaving third string Skylar Thompson up to play. And based on his performance last week, I don't think this game will be too competitive, giving the Vikings lots of opportunities to run the ball and ultimately kill the clock. Next, I got the leading rusher in the NFL, Nick Chubb. Last week, 5.6 points to Jamal Williams, 13 points to Aaron Jones, 5 points to J.K. Dobbins. The Patriots have yet to give up a single rushing touchdown to running backs this season. And what's crazy enough, Nick Chubb leads the NFL in running back with rushing touchdowns at 7. With a shutout against the number 1 scoring offense last week, I might be a little more concerned for Nick Chubb, but this Brown offensive line is ranked number 1 in run blocking this year, and Nick Chubb is first in broken tackles. So even if the Patriots decide to stack the box and get a lot of guys on him, they're going to need a lot of guys to bring this guy down. They cannot go one-on-one with him in open field. It's just not going to happen. And this could be a game where Nick Chubb gets below 10 points, but honestly, I really don't see them happening. I mean, the Patriots have a great run D. They have been all year, but Nick Chubb is just a different beast. Next up, I got Saquon Barkley. Joe Mixon, 10 points last week. Devin Singletary, 9 points. Damian Harris, 11. Rhamondre Stevenson, 18.10. The Ravens defense finally adjusted to a team's game plan last week against the Bengals. They played a too high shelf to stop their dangerous wide receivers from getting big plays on them like they usually do in the previous years. And I don't know how they performed this week against a very crazy dynamic, very versatile running back and one of the most explosive running backs in Saquon Barkley. This week, they could adjust by stacking the box against Saquon. But even when teams stack the box, Saquon has found a way to create these explosive plays and break tackles for big yards. I mean, eventually, he will break a big one. It's happened in every game so far this season. But a big factor in this one will be upon the injury status of Kadarius Toney and Kenny Golladay. With them in there, the Ravens will have no problem leaving their corners on island with the 4th-string wide receiver like Richie James Jr. But with Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney in, there is at least some potential and danger, which is honestly the difference between a 2-high safety look or a 1-high safety look, bringing one into box to stop Saquon or leaving them out there. That's honestly a factor that could impact Saquon's performance, but honestly doesn't matter. You start him every week. He's a great play once again. And next on my C tier, I got Leonard Fournette. Breece Hall, 14.8 points. Nick Chubb, 17.8. Devin Singletary, 5.1. The Steelers have yet to win a game with TJ Watt, and this trend will continue for even longer. Leonard Fournette's ability to get so many receptions out of the backfield has skyrocketed his value with 17 receptions in the last 2 games, which is insane for a running back. I think it's actually number 1 in the last 2 weeks. And with the Bills rolling right past this team, it makes me think Tom Brady and his offense will have a similar game. I see Fournette getting 2 total touchdowns and at least 80 scrimmage yards. And rounding off my SCR, I got the hottest running back in fantasy football right now, Austin Ekeler. In the 2 matchups these teams had last year, Ekeler put up 15-plus points in both games with a touchdown in each game. He was effective in the run game, but also catching balls out of the backfield easily. This Broncos team is coming off a very embarrassing loss, but that won't change against a hot Chargers team. Likely won't go number 1 again, but still putting up big points. Now moving on to my A tier. I called it a couple weeks ago. Alvin Kamara is back. So I called it a couple weeks ago that the Saints finally get him more involved in the offense in the Minnesota game. But due to the injury, my great prediction was delayed till another week, but also corrected. I mean, last week he got 20.4 points, and that was with Taysom Hill taking 3 rushing touchdowns away from him. So honestly, he could have been the RB1 last week. Now, Bengals have been a top 5 defense when it comes to fantasy running backs and only allow 70 yards per game. But I think Alvin Kamara is totally back. And with Andy Dalton as the quarterback, I think he will get a lot more share of the load than, say, Jameis Winston. Next on my A tier, I got Aaron Jones. People are saying the Jets made a statement game against an injured Dolphins team, which is nice for them. But I like Aaron Jones odd this week. He's had 2 quiet fantasy games, and now it's time for a big performance from a team that allowed 113 yards and a touchdown to Raheem Mostert. And I mean, if we look back a couple weeks ago, Nick Chubb had 3 rushing touchdowns against them. And rarely do you see the Packers take 2 back-to-back losses, especially against 2 New York teams. Honestly, if they lost back-to-back again against two New York teams, would be the end of their franchise. So look for Aaron Jones to have a pretty good game. And maybe this might come as a surprise to a lot of you, but in my ATR, I also got Rhamondre Stevenson. With the loss of Damian Harris, Stevenson will not have to split snaps anymore and will shine against a Browns team that allowed Ekeler to get 30 fantasy points last week. And still with Bailey Zapp at QB, this team will rely heavily on their run game. If Jonathan Taylor returns this week, he will have his easiest matchup of the year against the Jaguars. And if we look at his performances last year, they were good. 20 plus points in both games, and in the second game against them, he put up 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. If he can't perform well here, you may want to sell him while you can. And rounding off this A tier, I got Clyde's Edward Helaire, which might come in a surprise given last week he was a dud and he was outsnapped by Jerick McKinnon. But with the game of the week, Chiefs vs. Bills, this will be a high-scoring affair. Clyde Edwards-Helaire getting a lot of touchdowns this year. I say he will get at least one this week, and that just skyrockets his value given he's also in the receiving game and he gets a lot of runs. And I don't think it'll be any different for him. So, yeah, he's a great start this week until Jerick McKinnon or Isaiah Pacheco take his spot otherwise. Moving on to the B tier, there's obviously other great running backs, but I just don't think they'll perform as highly as the other ones I've listed already. And next I got Christian McCaffrey, who has been, obviously, he's a must start this week, obviously. He's a must start every week. His volume is undeniable. He gets so much snaps out of the backfield and gets so many balls, targets to him. But I just see him scoring in the top 11 best running backs. I mean, they're going against the #1 rushing defense in the Rams, but they have been exposed recently. I mean, Tony Pollard went off on them. Jeff Wilson had a great game against them. Also, in my B tier, I got Jeff Wilson Jr. The 49ers have found the run game a success again, even without Trent Williams. And with Jeff Wilson being the primary ball killer, it's hard not to have confidence in him. He doesn't get much opportunities as a ball catcher, but still has produced 70 rushing yards in every single game he started this year. And I expect the same performance with a touchdown added on against this weak Falcons defense that will most likely be punting the ball a lot to the Rams. And next I got Joe Mixon. And this offense has been sloppy for most of the years, and whoever calls the plays, whether it's Brian Callahan or Zach Taylor, it's ugly to see, honestly. The amount of volume he gets is undeniable. And honestly, you want to probably buy low on Joe Mixon if you can, because the amount of volume he's getting is insane. He's, I think, top 5 in rushes this year, and he's still only averaging like 2.9 yards per carry. It's insane how bad the offense has been. And probably a top 15 fantasy running back going forward, and even maybe top 10 is Breece Hall. The rookie is finally getting the bulk of the snaps, and he started this probably 2 weeks ago, and we saw how explosive he is when he gets the ball in his hands. I mean, the Packers defense has not been scary at all this season, and people thought there would be a lot coming into the season. But Breece Hall will once again shine. I mean, the dude's getting crazy production out of the backfield, whether it's rushing or catching the ball. He is an explosive runner, and I think the Jets will look for him early and often. And this may come as a surprise for the B tier, but I got Melvin Gordon. And with the loss of Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon is still a solid play, and he should be a solid option, honestly, all year. As long as he doesn't fumble, he will remain a starter because I don't see Mike Boone really taking his spot. Moving on to the C tier, these are a couple of running backs that I really do like. Maybe the matchup's not the best, or just haven't seen enough from them to really put them higher. To start off the C tier, I got Kenneth Walker, who honestly could break into the A tier coming forward. With the sad loss of Rashad Penny, this rookie will get his opportunity, and he pretty much showed everyone last week what he can do with 88 yards and a touchdown against the Saints. Like I said over on my TikTok, the Cardinals are a bad matchup for running backs, and they proved that last week with Miles Sanders only getting 7.4 points last week. But I think Kenneth Walker will probably prove a lot of people along in this game, and a game I think will be high-scoring affair. Moving on, got David Montgomery, the Bears running back. They're playing on prime time against the Commanders. What a great game. Anyway, this team is pretty bad, but I think there'll be a lot of opportunities for Montgomery to shine. I mean, this should not be a very high-scoring affair. Both offenses, both teams are not that good in general. And David Montgomery in general is just always in the game plan, always in the script. The Bears love to give him a lot of carries per game. It's just his production does not always match that. Next, I got Miles Sanders. And aside from the last 2 weeks, Miles Sanders has put up double-digit points in every single game this week except the last 2. And Eagles should look to give the Cowboys a bit of a balanced attack since it slows down the pass rush on Micah Parsons and opens up the playbook a lot more. So Miles Sanders, I would say, we get at least like 12 carries, maybe 3 catches out of the backfield, maybe a touchdown squeezing, but I doubt it. And next, I got the Cardinals running back, whether it's Enos Benjamin or James Conner, one of them could fill into the C tier spot. And honestly, they're not the best plays, but they could have a great matchup this week. 20 points Alvin Kamara, 23 points Jamal Williams, and 21.8 points to Cordero Patterson. So the matchup is there to James Conner or Enos Benjamin, so let's see if they take advantage of that this week, which they should, obviously. And finalizing the C tier, I got Ezekiel Elliott. If only he didn't have an expensive contract, Tony Pollard would be the obvious RB1 and a great S tier position play, because I think he's just way more dynamic, way more explosive, but I'm not here talking about Tony Pollard. So Zeke will most likely get most of the touches, but I think we all know he doesn't dominate games with his running ability anymore. His biggest attribute at this point is his pass blocking, which he probably will be doing a lot of because of his Eagles pass rush. Whether it's Brandon Graham, Hassan Reddick, or Fletcher Cox, they will be getting a lot of pressure on Cooper Rush, and I doubt he will get a lot of receptions this week because they need him in the block. But obviously, he's going to get his 15-plus carries. And if you get a touchdown, so be it. But no, he will not be a great play this week. And rounding off my running backs is the D tier. These running backs are okay, but in recent weeks, or the matchup is just awful for them. And rounding off my running backs, I got the D tier running backs who have been slowing down production-wise or just don't have the greatest matchup at all. But yeah, I'm going to go with James Robinson, Devin Singletary, Raheem Mostert, J.K. Dobbins. So James Robinson started the first 3 weeks as a top 5 fantasy running back, but has put up 6.8 points in the last 2 weeks combined. That's why I'm worried, because Travis Etienne outsnapped him last week and has been outperforming him the last 2 weeks, and he could steal his position any day now if the Jaguars keep losing. So I'm not too confident in James Robinson. In Devin Singletary's case, this should be a high-scoring game, as I said earlier, and a team like the Bills barely run the ball at all. And I predict they will throw a lot just to show their dominance against the Chiefs and show how big of an offense they are. But Devin does find a lot of success catching the ball, so he could sneak in a touchdown too with a game that could reach over 60 points combined. Now, it looks like Raheem Mostert is the main back for this team, as he got 69% of the snaps, where Chase Edmonds got 32%. But yeah, the Vikings have a very soft defense. They allow a lot of rushers to go have big plays on them. It's just the team might have to abandon the run early because their offense cannot keep up with the Vikings' fast pace, very aggressive style in the first half. So yeah, he might be lost in offense come second half. And finally, rounding off this D tier list, I got J.K. Dobbins. With Lamar Jackson as the QB, it's hard to play Ravens running back. He had a great game against the Bills, and that's because they were forced to run due to insane weather conditions. But Lamar Jackson just has so much ability to take away runs and touchdowns from Dobbins with his feet as well. I mean, Lamar Jackson is one of the best runners we've seen ever. So yeah, it's hard to play running backs on the Ravens.